Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm Emma Gannon. I'm a recovering journalist, author of multiple books, including a recent novel called Table for One. But most interestingly, I would say, for me, definitely, is my relationship with Substack. I run the Hyphen, which is apparently one of the first Substacks in the UK to reach thousands of paid subscribers, which I'm really proud of, and it's kind of been this whirlwind adventure. So it's sort of transformed my life. Really excited to be here with Hamish McKenzie, co-founder of Substack, as you just heard about, the platform and app that's reshaping how writers and creators connect with their audience. Today there are more than 5 million paid subscribers on the platform across the network. So it's having a moment, even though I feel like it's had so much love since it started in 2017. Hamish was a journalist and author, and he now lives in San Francisco. And of course, you write still and broadcast on Substack. And your philosophical notes are some of my favorite things. So please can always do those. So yeah, big round of applause for Hamish.
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
thanks very much, and I love London, and it's awesome to be here.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the rain. It is sometimes
Didn't
sunny
even
here,
notice it. Yeah.
So let's start with a description of Substack in your own words, because I think people call it different things. It's always evolving, it seems. What do you call it now?
Well, these days I think of it as a new media app. It's a place where people come to find great culture. There might be writing, there might be video, it might be audio, it might be communities that they're a part of that they especially value. They might just be hanging out in the main notes feed, which is there for discovery and discussion and a bit of play. But it's also a publishing platform for writers and creators who want to reach their audiences directly.
And you know, the word disruptor always comes up at conferences like these, no shade, but everyone's like disrupting the model. Like, you actually have disrupted a kind of age-old system. Could you just talk a bit about the ecosystem and how that's changed in terms of the media, but how people are monetizing? Yeah,
I mean, it's changed in a million ways. Actually, people have been saying maybe Substack is disrupting traditional media, and I am not so sure about that. I think what our intention is if we're disrupting anything, our goal is to disrupt social media. The incentives of social media create a system that encourages us to lose faith in each other and not trust each other and sort of play a shouting contest and see who can grab and hold on to attention. But the Substack system is about making the audiences and not the advertisers the customers, so that the audiences can vote with their email addresses or with their money for the kind of culture that they want to thrive. And the writers and creators on the other side of that can earn a sustainable income so they can keep doing the work that they find meaningful, that they really believe in. And through this system, which is based more on nurturing relationships than capturing attention, I think we can get different cultural outcomes. We can get different societal outcomes where people can be the best versions of themselves on the internet instead of the worst, most reactive versions.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always say is that people are really nice on there, and people are just really skeptical and suspicious, and they're like, why? And I think it's because we've inverted that, sort of the way people are interacting.
Yeah, I think we've been conditioned from the last decade of social media, especially, to kind of expect the worst of each other online and to not have productive conversations. In fact, to either be part of or witness conversations that make us feel really bad. And Substack is, there's a lot of niceness, but there's also a lot of productive debate and discussion and people from all walks of life and all perspectives coming together into this place and having a different kind of experience of what it's like to be in dialogue with each other. So it's been really encouraging. I don't want it to be too nice, though. Too much niceness is, wouldn't fly in England.
I agree, and I think people hang out in their own spaces. So it's that's my experience. But I'm sure someone in another corner is having a really long, very intense debates. That's not me.
Yeah, don't get too close to them.
But I've heard you in other interviews say that you believed that the idea for it was simple and that it was either going to go really well or it was just going to not work. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, the idea was, in the earliest days, is what if we just made it really simple, really easy for someone to start a paid email newsletter, a newsletter that people can subscribe to. And everyone at that time was sort of disbelieving that it could be a possible model for media. There are a couple of people who are doing it in the world, but no one else, like a few people were really trying. And the concept is simple. It's well, I write this thing and some audiences are going to show up and they're going to make a decision whether or not they want to pay for it on an ongoing, recurring basis through a subscription. And we thought, well, what's wrong with that idea? Like, is that just not going to work because no one's doing it right now? And we thought, well, yeah, maybe it's not going to work, and that would be the expected outcome because no one's doing it right now, and people tell us that people don't want to pay for things, and writers especially online. But we thought if it did work, and it worked for more than just a couple of people, then the implications could be pretty profound, because then you might have a new model for supporting good media and supporting good culture. And maybe that model just remains small and it's just like a little slice of the media ecosystem, but it could be a really important contribution. And then people like Emma Gannon come along and make a really wonderful publication and build a great community around it, and can also make meaningful income from it. So you have more options with your life now, I assume, more options with your professional life especially. And even if it only worked for Emma Gannon, I would be thrilled. I would think that that's a contribution, and for you and your audience, that is a really meaningful thing. But it turns out it actually works for many types of people, and there are many Emma Gannons on Substack right now. They're not all called Emma Gannon, and that's even more exciting.
And there's a reason I said I'm recovering from the media industry, because we needed like a safe haven to go and hide away whilst sort of everything was changing and crumbling. I have to ask this because I get asked it a lot. Is there a limit on how many newsletters people can afford, / is there a limit on the platform? Because, I pay for so many things. That's my main outcome, actually, is, Netflix, Disney Plus, whatever.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of money on Substack every year, and I love that, business expense.
Yeah.
But, is there a cap, do you think?
Probably for some people. I think you and I are like media nerds, and we do feel the pain of like, oh, another $50 a year for a particular writer. But I think a couple of things are true. One is that I think as a people, let's say it this way, the market has been incorrectly valuing culture. So people have been paying too little for great works of culture, great art, great literature, great journalism, great writing, whatever it is. And the market has led us to expect that a lot of this stuff is going to be free. Yeah. Or that it's like you have to scrape for peanuts, or like great journalists have to like hustle and hope for like a $200 payment for an article that they freelance for some site, and feel grateful if the editor even bothers to reply to their email, which is a former freelance journalist, or like an experience
of for 6 months.
Chasing invoices. But it turns out people really value culture, and of course that makes sense, because great culture shapes how we think and how we behave in the world. It actually shapes who we are, not just individually, but as a society. And so I think what we can see with this kind of model is that there can be a little bit of a correction, a little bit of a market correction, where great culture and the people who make it do start to be adequately valued by the market. The other thing is, not that many people. There are like way more people in the world, I think, than many people assume. And you don't need that many people to become your subscriber for the financial equation to be pretty interesting. So 1,000 people paying you $50 a year is for most people enough to live on in most cities in the world, or most places in the world. And so you don't need to win everyone in the world as your subscriber for this to be interesting from the creative perspective. And then on the economic math side of things, there are interesting opportunities to rebundle one day that I think could be interesting, that Substack might have an opportunity to do. But what we would never want to do is put Substack as the layer between the publisher and their audience, because the creator having that ownership of a direct relationship with their audience is what this whole game is about. It's fundamental and sacrosanct. So if we're going to do any sort of bundling, we might make sure we want to preserve those direct relationships.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a wake-up call, I think, for people who realize they don't need middlemen as much. It's sort of like that direct relationship has been incredibly amazing for a lot of people.
I think it's so good, because you can actually invert the power dynamics so that the institutions that used to be middlemen can instead only succeed by supporting and helping you.
Yes.
So if you're like a YouTuber, but you have a Substack, and you're getting paid on Substack, where you own that relationship with the audience, then rather than being on YouTube and being vulnerable to whatever decisions the powers that be at YouTube make and how their algorithms, etc. work, YouTube can then become something that helps you get reach and helps you build a wide audience that then you can funnel down into this place where you have a direct relationship with the audience and you make all your real money, which means that YouTube then becomes like in service to you, which is a welcome change in dynamic.
A sign that it's going so well is I know people come and sort of panic at you that it's going to change or it's going to get ruined, and it's like they've moved into their favorite home and they're worried it's going to like crumble or something.
Yeah.
And I see that as such a big compliment that people love it so much. Can you give us any words on what you see the future of it being?
I feel the same thing myself as like a person who cares about culture and he used to make my living as a journalist. I have that nerves and like I love Substack and I love working there. I don't want it to like change. But I do want it to keep evolving so that the model can help more and more people, and so that the system that underlies Substack starts to dominate culture instead of the systems that underlie Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And we will continue to evolve because we want writers to find more audiences, so discovery features and social networking type of stuff is actually great for them in that way, as long as you're not turning it into an attention farming game. And we will continue to add and support new formats like video and live video and audio, because there are plenty of artists who want to express themselves in those other formats, and there are plenty of people who prefer to consume as video first people or audio first people, whatever. But the thing that will never change, the thing that is fundamental, the special source of Substack is the model. So primarily based on direct subscriptions to writers or creators, or a small team of them. And Substack, the platform, can only make money when the creators and the writers make money. It's totally free to use Substack, and the only way we make money is by taking a 10% cut of subscription revenue, which means we have to do the thing that helps you succeed for us to succeed. And then the ownership of the creators having ownership of all their content and ownership of their mailing lists so that they can leave at any time. And that means that we've got no lock-in other than showing that we can really provide value to them. And as long as Substack preserves that model with those three pillars, direct subscriptions, ownership, and aligned incentives, then I think this thing that is truly special about Substack will not go away. It will just get stronger as the network gets stronger.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think we're in such a strange time in history, just the world is changing and very unstable, and I know a lot of people feel very at sea, and to have something built genuinely on some integrity and about community and about connection, I think a lot of people hold on to that, so I love that. We don't have much time left. I knew this would happen. We could talk to you for hours, but could you give me a few examples of people who are doing really well on there, who are loving it? Maybe someone different to me being a journalist working on there now, or an author. Someone kind of different that you love their story.
Well, the first thing that springs to mind is a journalist. Like a guy who must be in his 70s. He was writing the column for a small city newspaper in California for 55 years. And then this newspaper laid him off because they needed to make cuts because newspapers are struggling, the business model doesn't work anymore. And he didn't know what Substack was when he got laid off. But like 55 years is a long time to write a column. He was beloved in his city. He got on Substack the next day because someone told him, hey, and his kids told him, hey, you should do this. And then he's come on Substack. All of the audience followed him, and he's making far more money doing Substack than he ever made through that newspaper. And I love that story. But there are a ton of other stories. I mean, there are so many, I could choose any, but another one that's like really top of my mind is a woman named Violet Witchell. She is a recipe maker and chef. She built up a huge audience on Instagram and a huge audience on TikTok, but it's really hard to make money on those platforms. So she has more than 1 million followers on each of those platforms, but she was doing brand deals off the side. And by anyone's measure, she's a success story from those platforms. But she came to Substack and just over a year ago started, and Substack was the place where she has the deep relationships with her communities. She publishes her full recipes. People can be talking to her and she can talk back to them. And it turns out that's a much better deal. She was making, last time I checked, it's something like, actually I just realized maybe I should be careful with her private information. She's making way more money on Substack than she was making from those other places, and having been experienced because she has a direct line to the people who care about her work.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, but then also I think it's worth noting that just having 1 million followers elsewhere doesn't always convert to Substack, does it? As in,
that's true.
You know, it's quite a deep platform. Like, as in, you have to have substance.
Yeah, you got to be super smart. Yeah.
But you can't just take sort of quick pictures off Instagram and necessarily convert. But I see that as a good thing. It's about, you know, smaller communities as well. Like, you don't need that many subscribers to make a really good living.
Yeah, it's a different kind of game. Like the win at Instagram game has a lot to do with how you look and how you show up and how, you know, the aesthetics. The Win at Substack game has a lot to do with how well you show off your thinking and how well you nurture those relationships of people who are expressing trust in you. In many cases, when they're paid subscribers, they're taking something that's very scarce and important to them and saying, I want you to keep going, I want you to do this job, not just for me, but for others, and I want you to thrive. And so that's a different kind of responsibility. It requires different types of behaviors. And I think that's why you get lots more thoughtful discussion and thoughtful interaction.
Can I end on just a bit of a personal one of like, what is your motivation? Because I always get from you that you have a real motivation. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I never wanted to be a tech founder. I'm a former journalist. I've done all the journalism jobs sort of from the print perspective. My favorite was being a freelancer, but it's a hard scrabble to be a freelancer and make a living. You just like find $1 behind couch cushions wherever you can. I wrote a book and was withstanding legal pressure through the whole process of writing that book, so I know what it's like to like feel very alone in that kind of process. What I do it for, and I knew that being a tech founder is a very difficult job because I'd written about it as a journalist covering tech founders and startups and startup ecosystems, and I didn't really want to be in a place where I'm facing pressures all the time, not just from employees, but like the user base or customers, etc. Turns out in the press as well, that happens with Substack. And you can't really switch off, and you have to like make a business work, and I have no idea how to do that. But I really believe that culture is important. I believe that I'm a writer. I believe that writing is very important. It's the most important technology that humans have ever come up with, maybe up there with fire. And I saw like a culture that was suffering, and not just writers being in pain because their livelihoods were disappearing, but the discourse generally, because we're all like shouting at each other rather than seeking to understand each other. And I saw with Substack this model, which my co-founder Chris, who's the CEO, came up with because he's a genius systems thinker, could actually work and could actually help people. The more hands it gets into, the more good it can do. And so that's what my motivation is, like try and get this into the hands of as many people as possible and hopefully have a positive effect on culture.
Yeah, I love that. And it feels like we're going back to go forwards in that people are meeting up in record stores and discussing music. Like Nick Hornby did a thing, and then I did a dinner party for 40 of my Substack subscribers. People are hanging out in little bookshops. And I think that's actually how we change the world again. Like I think we need to get together and talk about things, and I think Substack helps do that. So my fun final question is, because you hang out on Notes a lot, and I love it on there. It's like the fun, good, not just nice, good Twitter. What can people do to get a restack or like a share or a comment from you? What do you look for?
Oh, I look for people who are funny and smart and good faith as well, or like a little bit courageous. They say the thing that they might not be willing to say in other platforms, because this is a space where you might be better understood.
You can be a full weirdo.
Be a full weirdo, especially like the weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Thank you.
That was bang on time. I really, really enjoyed that, and thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sign up for Substack.